what if I told you that the exact moment you feel completely exhausted, like the split second, your brain is just screaming at you to quit and your body feels like it's totally shutting down,
Hmm.
you're actually only operating at 40% of your true capacity?
Yeah, and I mean, the craziest part about the source material we're looking at today is that this isn't just some, cheesy motivational theory. It's an actual biological reality.
Right, it's baked into our DNA.
Exactly. That
Yeah.
remaining 60% is this massive reservoir of untapped human potential. But the problem is, our brains are basically hardwired to keep us out of that zone at all costs.
So today we're taking a deep dive into the methods of former Navy SEAL David Goggins. We've got a massive stack of sources documenting his life, and our mission here is to deconstruct his blueprint for building what he calls an unbreakable, armored mind.
And we were talking about a guy who went from being a deeply traumatized, heavily overweight kid with a learning disability to literally becoming one of the toughest endurance athletes on the planet.
It's wild. But we should probably set the stakes for you, the listener, right up front.
Oh, absolutely. Because this isn't just a story about some crazy endurance athlete doing impossible things. It's a literal blueprint for you. It's about silencing your inner voice, taking extreme accountability, and actually turning your darkest past traumas into weapons for your own success.
I love that. It's about completely rewiring how you perceive suffering.
Yeah.
But before anyone can push their physical or mental limits to that extreme, there's like this foundational step you have to take.
Right. You have to look at what you're building upon.
Yeah, and in Goggins' case, the source material paints a picture of a foundation that was just completely shattered. His early childhood was defined by severe, violent physical abuse from his father, Toughness.
It's really heavy stuff. We're talking about the kind of trauma where a 6-year-old child feels the need to sleep with a loaded gun under his pillow. Yeah. And then you combine that violence at home with extreme poverty and the intense, just suffocating racism he faced later when his mom finally escaped and moved them to this small town in Indiana.
The psychological toll of an environment like that is just staggering, and what really stands out in the sources is how he initially processed all of that trauma.
Which is basically how most of us naturally would, right? He hid from it.
He totally retreated into comfort. I mean, the instinct is to protect yourself. And the sources describe how this trauma response ultimately led him to a pretty dead-end life in his early 20s.
Yeah, he was nearly 300 pounds, working the night shift as an exterminator.
Literally spraying for cockroaches in filthy restaurants, just barely scraping by. He had fully internalized this victim mentality.
Well, the human mind is just incredibly adept at protecting its own ego. We build up these elaborate narratives to justify our circumstances,
Totally. We all do it.
Right. And for Goggins, the narrative was that he was dealt a bad hand, so he had a built-in excuse to be mediocre. His foundation was cracked because he was living in complete denial about his reality.
He was letting his past dictate his future. Which brings us to the pivotal turning point of his entire life, which the sources call the accountability mirror.
This is such a powerful concept.
It really is. And he doesn't just read a self-help book and feel better. He literally shaves his head, stands in front of his bathroom mirror, looks himself dead in the eyes, and performs what I can only describe as a hostile corporate audit of his own soul.
A hostile corporate audit, that's exactly what it is.
He calls himself out with zero filter. He's looking in the mirror saying, "You're fat, you're uneducated, you're a liar, you're going nowhere."
It is the absolute ultimate confrontation with reality. I mean, think about it. To fix a failing company, you can't ignore a bleeding balance sheet.
Right, you have to look at the numbers.
Exactly. And to fix your life, you cannot lie to yourself about your deficits. He realized that you can't outrun your past. You have to strip away the ego that is fiercely protecting your insecurities.
You actually have to accept the abuse, the failures, and all those profound insecurities as your ultimate training ground.
Yes.
But I have to pause on that for a second because that feels completely counter to the cultural messaging we get today.
Oh, it's the exact opposite.
Right. We are constantly immersed in this self-care culture that promotes a sort of toxic positivity. We're told to be gentle with ourselves, that we're perfect just the way we are, and that we should avoid negative self-talk at all costs.
Yeah, but this accountability mirror method is inherently brutal. It actually demands that you highlight your deepest flaws.
It's fascinating.
Well, that brutality is the point, because it shatters the illusion. But what's critical here is that he didn't just insult himself and walk away depressed.
Right, he didn't just wallow in it.
No, he immediately tied that brutal honesty to extreme accountability. He started writing daily, actionable goals on Post-it notes and sticking them to that mirror.
And these weren't vague aspirations like, be a better person. They were immediate, highly specific steps.
Very tactical.
Things like lose 5 pounds this week or study for the ASVAB because, his reading comprehension was severely delayed. He was reading at a fourth grade level, but he needed to test at a high school senior level to even have a prayer of joining the military.
So what does he do? He sits at his kitchen table, writing out complex concepts hundreds of times until they literally imprinted on his brain.
It's just sheer repetition.
Yep. He held himself accountable to those sticky notes every single day. And that daily accountability acts as the bridge to the next critical phase of his methodology.
Which is what?
Well, once you've faced the unvarnished truth in the mirror, you have to actively change your internal software.
Yeah.
And you do this by intentionally seeking out friction.
Right, callousing the mind. The sources use a really fantastic physical analogy for this process.
The gym analogy.
Yeah. If you walk into a gym and jump up to grab a rough steel pull-up bar with soft hands, you're going to get blisters. It's going to tear your skin and it will hurt.
Oh.
But if you keep grabbing that bar day after day, eventually your skin adapts.
It forms tough, thick calluses.
Exactly. And Goggins argues that the human mind works the exact same way. It starts out soft and vulnerable, but it hardens through repeated, intentional exposure to discomfort.
It's a profound adaptation mechanism.
Yeah.
The brain learns that it can not only survive stress, but actually operate within it.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because if I'm looking at my own life, I'm not trying to become a Navy SEAL.
Fair enough.
So tomorrow morning, when it is pitch black, freezing cold, and my alarm goes off, how do I actually apply this without feeling like I need to go run an ultramarathon before breakfast?
I'm glad you asked that because you apply it through micro-suffering.
Micro-suffering.
Yeah, the sources are very clear that callousing the mind does not start with extreme physical endurance. It starts with the absolute smallest, most mundane tasks.
Like what?
It's making your bed perfectly the exact second you wake up. Instead of hitting snooze, it's washing the dishes immediately after dinner instead of leaving them in the sink for the morning.
Doing the laundry when you just really don't want to.
Exactly. Or going for a 3-mile run in the freezing rain when every fiber of your being wants to stay on the couch.
So you're basically training your brain to stop negotiating with itself.
You're establishing a new hierarchy where your will dictates your actions, not your fleeting feelings.
But let's look at where this micro-suffering ultimately leads, because the source text gives an example that frankly sounds borderline psychotic.
Oh, you mean BDS?
Yes. During Navy SEAL training, Goggins literally ran on broken legs. Like his shins were heavily fractured, so he taped them up tight with duct tape to compress the swelling, and he just kept running on them.
Yeah, that's intense.
Is that mental toughness, or is that just self-destruction? I mean, where is the line?
It's a phenomenal question, and honestly, for the average person, running on fractured shins is absolutely self-destructive. You shouldn't do it.
Okay, good to know.
But Goggins' extreme case serves as a proof of concept for the rest of us. It demonstrates just how far the brain's baseline can actually be pushed.
So his mind had become so deeply callous that catastrophic physical pain was no longer a deterrent.
Right, it was simply another data point to be managed. It proves that the limit we perceive is just a tiny fraction of the limit that actually exists.
Which brings us back to the hook of this entire deep dive. If a human being can push past fractured shins, there is clearly a massive disconnect between what the brain says is the limit and what the body can actually endure.
And this is the foundation of the 40% rule. To really understand this, we have to look at the brain's evolutionary hardware.
The governor.
Exactly. The brain has a governor, very much like the governor on a golf cart or a commercial truck.
Right. In a vehicle, a governor artificially limits the top speed so the engine doesn't blow out or overheat.
And our brains have an evolutionary governor designed to stop us from taking fatal risks, to stop us from feeling excessive pain, and mostly just to keep us perfectly comfortable and safe.
But wait, isn't pain our body's warning signal? If I'm running and my knee starts screaming in pain, isn't that my body telling me that I am breaking?
Well,
how do we know it's just the governor trying to slow us down and not a legitimate warning that, a ligament is about to snap?
that distinction is vital. You have to learn the difference between acute catastrophic injury, like a torn muscle or a bone break, and the brain's evolutionary software just hitting the panic button because it's uncomfortable.
Okay, so it's a false alarm.
Basically. Evolutionarily, our brains want us to conserve energy so we can survive the winter or flee a predator. So when you're doing a hard workout, the brain says, hey, this is highly uncomfortable and we're burning precious calories. Let's send a pain signal to make this stop.
So a lot of the fatigue we feel is often just the brain throwing a preemptive tantrum to hoard energy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the 40% rule dictates that when you hit that wall, when your mind is absolutely screaming that you are completely done and have nothing left to give, you actually have 60% left in the tank.
That is wild. So by refusing to quit when that tantrum starts, you push past the governor.
Yes.
And what happens biologically when you push past it?
You tap into the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response.
Right.
When the brain realizes you are not going to stop, it actually stops trying to hold you back and instead opens up the chemical reserve.
Oh, wow. So it switches tactics.
Exactly. You get a surge of adrenaline. You find what endurance athletes refer to as a second wind.
That makes so much sense.
Goggins observed other runners and realized that average humans leave massive amounts of potential on the table because we tap out at the very first sign of genuine suffering. We never even get to see what that remaining 60% looks like.
Okay, but adrenaline is a finite resource, right? I mean, it gets you through the initial barrier, but what happens when you're deep into that remaining 60% and the adrenaline wears off?
It's true, it doesn't last forever.
At some point, you're just residing in the pain cave. And to survive there, motivation just isn't enough. Motivation vanishes the second things get truly miserable.
That is exactly where you have to transition from biological overrides to specific psychological weapons. And the most prominent one in the sources is a concept called the cookie jar.
Oh, the context for the cookie jar is absolutely wild. Let's look at the San Diego one-day race.
This is a crazy story.
Goggins decides he needs to run 100 miles in under 24 hours to qualify for the Badwater Ultramarathon. The catch. He has zero specific training for this.
None.
And he weighs over 250 pounds at the time because he'd been heavily powerlifting. He literally shows up to a 100-mile race with a lawn chair, some Ritz crackers, and a bottle of water.
It is an absurd logistical setup.
Mhm.
And predictably, the physical toll is catastrophic.
Yeah. By mile 70, his body is systematically shutting down. He has stress fractures in his feet. He is severely dehydrated.
He is literally urinating blood because his kidneys are failing.
He hits an absolute mental wall. The governor isn't just screaming, it is shutting off the lights. Adrenaline is long gone.
And this is where he reaches into the cookie jar. It's brilliant.
Right, because instead of relying on empty motivational quotes, it's like he is building psychological case law.
How do you mean?
Well, when you're suffering immensely, your brain acts like a prosecutor, trying to convince you that you cannot survive this, that you must quit. You have to reach into your memory and pull out hard evidence past victories to prove the brain wrong.
I love that analogy. You were citing precedent to your own mind. Goggins reached into his memory and pulled out the cookie of losing over 100 pounds in 3 months just to join the Navy.
Right.
He pulled out the memory of surviving Hell Week with broken legs.
It's like collecting items in a video game inventory. You don't achieve things just to get a trophy. You collect these cookies so you can use them as health potions during future boss fights.
From a neurological standpoint, this is actually fascinating. By vividly recalling a deeply earned past victory, you aren't just distracting yourself. You're triggering a real dopamine release.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that dopamine actually blunts the physical pain response in the brain, giving you just enough neurochemical fuel to take one more step. You use your own history as a psychological health potion.
You're overriding the panic with factual, undeniable evidence of your own resilience.
Exactly. But the cookie jar is an internal tool. The sources highlight another tactical weapon that deals with external forces and adversity. He calls it taking souls.
Taking souls. It just sounds incredibly intense.
It is intense, and it's specifically deployed against abusers, bullies, or competitors who are actively trying to break you.
Give us an example from the sources.
The most vivid example happens during Hell Week in SEAL training. The trainees are dealing with this instructor nicknamed Psycho Pete.
Okay.
This instructor's entire job, his singular goal, is to break the trainees' will and make them ring the bell to quit. He has them in the freezing Pacific Ocean surf, torturing them, actively looking for them to show weakness.
And instead of quitting or even just gritting his teeth and enduring it, Goggins does the unthinkable. He flips the dynamic.
He really does.
He smiles.
He smiles. He starts humming a song. He looks the instructor dead in the eye and shows him that the absolute worst torture he can dish out is just not working.
And in that specific moment, he takes the soul of the instructor.
Yes. The psychology of that is incredible because an abuser or someone trying to break you relies entirely on extracting suffering. Your pain is their fuel. It proves their power over you.
So by smiling, you deny them their fuel. You take their power away.
Taking souls is about utilizing excellence and endurance as a form of absolute defiance.
That is so powerful.
If a teacher doubts you, if a boss underestimates you, or if a competitor tries to intimidate you, you don't waste energy arguing with them.
You produce work of such undeniable, flawless quality, or you endure so much more than they ever thought possible that you force them to realize they miscalculated.
You break their mind instead of letting them break yours.
Man, that's intense. But let's bring this back down to reality for a second. Even with an armored mind, even if you callous your brain, dive into the suki jar, and take souls, you are still going to fail sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Failure is a mathematical certainty if you are actually pushing your limits.
Unavoidable. But the defining difference between the top 1% and everyone else is the mechanical way they process that failure.
Yep.
The source material details his attempt to break the Guinness World Record for pull-ups. The target was 4,020 pull-ups in 24 hours.
Right.
And he decides to do this on live television, on the Today Show.
It was a massive spectacle, millions of people watching, and it ended in complete failure.
Complete disaster. His hands ripped open to the meat, his muscles completely locked up, and he had to walk away well short of the record. It was a highly public, humiliating defeat.
Now, human nature would dictate that you just bury your head in the sand after something like that. You blame the weather, you blame the pull-up bar, you blame your genetics.
But Goggins utilized a core military concept to process it. The After Action Report, or AAR.
Right, and AAR is basically a sterile, emotionless autopsy of your failure. It requires stripping away all ego and being brutally honest about what you can control.
When he autopsied his failure on the Today Show, he realized the glitz and glamour were his downfall. The lights, the interviews with the hosts, the pressure of the audience, it all fed his ego and distracted him from the sheer physical mechanics of the task.
He hadn't respected the record. His grips were wrong. The environment was
That's
wrong.
the adjustment. He removes the ego entirely.
Completely. For his next attempt, he goes to a gritty, sweaty CrossFit dungeon in Nashville, Tennessee.
No television cameras, no live audience, just him, a pull-up bar, and a fan.
In the result, he shatters the record. He completes 4,030 pull-ups.
But the real lesson here isn't the victory itself. It's what happens the morning after he breaks the world record. We have this huge cultural obsession with arriving.
Oh, totally. We think, once I get the degree, once I hit the weight goal, once I get the promotion, I can set up a lawn chair and relax. I've made it.
But that mindset is the enemy of the armored mind.
The deepest philosophy in these sources is the concept of no finish line. The phrase Goggins uses is, the fridge is never full.
I love that.
There is no such thing as permanent greatness. You don't achieve a high level of discipline and just get to keep it forever on autopilot. Greatness is a lease and rent is due every single day.
You have to start at day one, week one, every single morning. The moment you think you have arrived, your mental calluses start to soften.
You have to constantly find new ways to introduce friction, to force yourself back into the mindset of a beginner, and to challenge yourself in entirely new disciplines.
It is a relentless pursuit. But, knowledge like this is completely useless if it just stays as an interesting concept in your head.
It has to be applied.
Absolutely. So here is the actionable takeaway from you listening right now. It starts tonight. We want you to go into your bathroom, look in the mirror, your own accountability mirror, and be brutally honest with yourself.
Strip away the ego that protects your insecurities. Look at your deficits.
Then grab a sticky note, write down the one uncomfortable task you have been avoiding, and stick it to the glass. And tomorrow morning when you wake up and you really, really don't want to do it anyway. Start building that callus.
And as you go about the rest of your week, I want to leave you with a slightly different thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about pushing limits, but look at the world around us.
Right.
We have engineered a society absolutely obsessed with convenience and frictionless living. Everything is delivered to our door, our environments are perfectly temperature controlled, and we avoid physical discomfort at all costs.
It's true.
If our brains are biologically wired to seek comfort, and we now live in a world that caters to that weakness 24/7, are we systematically atrophying our collective mental strength?
Wow.
And if so, what are you going to do today to introduce a little bit of necessary friction back into your life?